And
Brandon Davis, Swan Energy.
Imran Khan, Swan Energy.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this week on Mining Money, a place where we like to find pockets of positivity out in the marketplace and past success stories, of course, that help us navigate through the times of uncertainty like many people are feeling right now. So we've got Brandon Davis and Imran Khan with us, Swan Energy, a couple gentlemen that know the investments in and out because they've been there, done that, and that means the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs, because it's hard to have the ups without the downs in today's world. And so the two gentlemen, Brandon Davis and Imran Khan, thank you for joining the program today. Mining Money, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for asking, Jason.
Thank you for
doing pretty well myself.
Well, thank you for joining us. Say, last week when we talked, you guys mentioned your staff a couple times about the importance of kind of having a good quality staff and some workers and really some people to fill in the gaps, that sort of thing. Well, for me, that was felt this week because I had to do some IT work at 3 a.m. on my website. And that really got me thinking, boy, it is really important to have, a good staff in a deep, diverse, or that sort of, a bench, if you will, in baseball, and a good second string quarterback to go, that sort of thing. So I thought, let's talk about your team a little bit to start this off. So talk about Swan Energy, what you guys have going over there, and why you guys are able to, do such great investments.
For every great investment, there's bad investment. So it goes both ways. But our staff here, we manage about 50 partnerships. And then on top of that, we manage 5 companies, and each company has its own website, just to put it in perspective for you. So we have 500% more problems than you do on just the website front. But yeah, it takes a good staff, and it's not necessarily a large staff. It's just a very competent, aggressive, hardworking staff. I mean, I've had it in the past where I've had as many as 200 employees. Right now, I have in the office under 20, which we actually get more done than we used to get done with 50 people in the office. So we've got great people, and that's not always been the case because as the company grew, it changed, and I had to change the people to keep up with the changing company, and that happens to all companies that are in business for 10, 12, 15 years and grow and constantly are growing. And I guess in the business world, you're either growing or you're shrinking, and I've done a little bit of both. Right now, we're on a growth plan, and we have petroleum engineers, plural, on staff. Geologists we use on day rates because it's just there's not enough geology in most of the projects we have that really matters because most of it's engineering. We have probably a half a dozen consulting engineers that we work with depending on what projects we're doing and where they are, and a landman. And then, of course, there's the whole team of land people that are out there if we need them to put them to work on a project. And we've done that, too. At one point, our land department was 30 people. So not that that's big, but it's not tiny either. I mean, we were making a lot happen, spending a lot of money on it and making good money with it. So those things go and come, and that just depends on the market and what's going on. Right now, the opportunities are in acquisitions of existing wells. Right now, that's where the money's at because you're buying it at almost, well, I'd say it's historic uncertainty from the oil and gas side over the last 6-8 months. And we're able to pick up wells for fractions of what the work cost on them to get to the point we're buying them. And so that's one thing we're looking really hard at, gas and oil. And we've made some acquisitions and we're moving on some work on them. But there's a lot of that out there right now. And hopefully by the end of the year, we can buy some more.
I love how Brandon brings in and talks about the positives, but then the first thing he does is talks about the negatives. And I think it's, it's really good to be able to hear that. The aspect of the different sizes of the companies over the years is really critical, right? Knowing when to pivot is a very important part of business. And, being around for so long, I think that's been done well, right? And with what he was talking about earlier, there's investments that are made no matter what. There's positives, negatives that happen. In general, if you've got a company that only has positive investments, there's something going on over there that I don't know. It's questionable, is what I'm saying. A lot of our deals that we do, we're drilling wells. So you do the reason why we have all these engineers on staff, and the reason why we have folks that are out there looking for deals is for that purpose, right? You can't just find, even though the market's available out there, most of the deals that are out there are not like, kind of like in real estate, you have the MLS and things, right? In oil and gas, you have different clearinghouses and things, but most of what we're looking at are items that are off-market deals, right? And the way that we do that is through our landmen. We've got different folks that are out there looking at and talking with different companies and gauging an interest on, hey, are you guys interested in, offloading X part of your wells, or hey, you guys have this good land over here. Would you like to partner to be able to do some drilling over there with us, right? So we're always looking for different projects, and being involved and pivoting at the right time with the company is very important. And I think I think Brandon hit the nail on the head with the talking about the negatives and the positives with how you do business.
Perspective on that. I drilled 50 wells with an operator, and of those 50, 48 of them came in at or under budget. 2 of them were over budget, significantly over budget, but pretty good percentage overall. And I was very confident in the ability of the company. The next 4 wells we drilled, which we owned 80% ownership, plus or minus a half of, maybe a fraction of a point in. We're all 400% over budget, and it was probably the most painful, disastrous, bad deal I've ever done, and it was amplified because of how much it cost. So it's there are good opportunities and bad opportunities, and the point I'm trying to make is, if in this business, people always want to know what you did in the past, and that's great, but the reality is this. Every project we put together, and this is the same with most companies, has its own merits and its own warrants. Nothing that's happened prior has anything to do with this project. If everything that had been done before, I used to say it like this: if I had 99 successful wells and I'm drilling number 100, those 99 successes mean nothing. If I have 99 dry holes and I'm drilling number 100, which I don't know how anyone would survive to do that, but let's just say you did. Number 100 could be the biggest well ever. It's not necessarily going to be a dry hole. It doesn't mean anything. And I think a lot of people try to hang on to their track record, but that track record doesn't mean shit. It's the oil and gas business. There is no certainty, period, and there's always a lot of risk. So you can't live and die based on what you've done. I know a lot of people do, but I just say, like, if you look across the board, the people who everyone said was so consistent and always wins, they usually turn out to be crooks, and that's just the facts. So it's just not reality.
I wrote down negatives exist, but they shouldn't paralyze your investments and momentum, because you guys have got a lot of passion behind what you do because you've got skin in the game. And that's one thing, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons that you're on this program, is that separates you from the rest, is you guys have skin in the game. So you're not just reading something off a computer screen. Yeah, you might get the computer screen reports, but you guys are also getting the vibe and the energy and the boots on the ground reports and et cetera, et cetera. So talk to me a little bit about that passion, that skin in the game, and the importance behind that, and how that does. And I guess, does it separate, you from an average person? I think it does.
I don't know what that, I have so many things going on with myself. It's a rare opportunity that I have the ability, just from a cash flow perspective, to do deals with other people because I have so much money sunk into mine. But from our standpoint, if someone sees a project from us, it's because we bought it. It's not because we want to buy it. Or we're thinking about buying it, or we want them to buy it. It's because we bought it, we put some time in it, we may have put a bunch of money into it, depending on the circumstance, and now we've got it to a point where we're comfortable showing it to other people. The project that we're selling right now, for example, we bought 6 months ago, and just got to the point where we were ready to show people the project. The other ones that we're working on right now are 10-year-old projects that are just now to the point they're ready to bring in investors. And it's with a group we've never worked with before, and they have so much time and energy into it. And we've been working with them for 4 months to get the deal put together. And so that's how we function. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it, whether we raise money or not. And so that's how we operate. All we're trying to do is make it where we can spread our money out further by bringing in investors versus just bringing it's all investors. So it's just a different way of looking at it. At one point in 2013, 2014, we were probably keeping 60% of our projects, and only selling off about 40. And that was because we had built up our cash flow and we're just using it all to drill more. And that's how it kind of panned out. It was just a matter of how many proposals we got to drill and what we drilled. So it's just, there's so many different ways to skin a cat, if you will. And as far as how deals are structured and who does what, I don't know. I don't care. I know what we do. I like what we do. I feel good about what we do. And that's really what keeps me coming to the office every day.
I'm curious about your projects that you've named. I mean, I know that there's a lot of confidentiality and a lot of disclosure agreements, that sort of thing, but let's role play for a second. Pretend I'm, somebody who could potentially invest in one of your projects, and maybe we're, having a highball at the hotel lounge and that sort of thing. So it's a real shallow surface type of a description, because like I said, I know there's a lot of confidentiality involved in things, but talk to me like I'm a potential investor with one of your projects. What type of expectations?
I'm sorry,
would you
Jason.
have?
I can't talk to you if you're drinking. My moral compass will not allow me to try to sell you something while you're drinking. I just can't do it.
You, sir, passed the SEC test. Yes, we've been.
I've never done that either, and I hear about all these people taking people to get drinks all the time and closing deals. I think that sounds dangerous to me.
I knew a guy that tried to get out of a deal because he had 4 bourbons. So it's a thing. It is a thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's just no thanks. The first thing that we do when we talk to people is we find out if they're qualified to participate with us, and then that's crucial, because if they're not, we won't even show them what we have. I mean, it's that confidential. We don't want anyone looking at it that can't participate in it. The next thing is just the downside and the upside of the project, and we start with the downside and try to make sure the people that we're talking to understand that downside, which in most cases is you invest $1 million, you could lose $1 million. That's the way the risk works in oil and gas. And then from that point, we attempt to show someone the reason that we bought into it and what excites us. And if that excites them and they want to do it, great. If they don't, they don't. That's generally the way it goes. And, this is it's not a new process. It's the same one that's been around for 100 years as far as just, here's why we bought this. Here's why we're excited about it. What do you want to do?
And the market is such right now that, we when you're finding these deals, they're really great. And in terms of, and I say that from our own perspective, not an outside perspective, but the opportunities that are available are really great. And if you can be able to bring in partners to partner with you, rather than us doing, say, 2-3 projects, because of the deal flow that's out there currently, we can do 10-15 projects, right? And that's kind of, the idea that we've got going into it, right? And the skin in the game aspect of things that you were talking about earlier, honestly, managing what people call it OPM, right? Other people's money. I hate that idea. I hate it. But it's at the same time, it's kind of like, if you want to be able to grow and you want to be able to get to a certain point, it's a no-brainer to be able to get them in, especially after we've gone through and we've provided our money into the actual deals because we felt that strongly about it. Right. So that's kind of, it is risky, but we're in it to win it, and it might not happen, but we're going to do everything we can on our side to try to do the best of it.
I have made acquisitions that I didn't turn around and put in front of people, because after further due diligence, after our acquisition, we determined that it wasn't suitable for us or anyone else as far as we were concerned. And that happens sometimes too. I mean, that's part of the deal. And we spent a lot of time. I can tell you that today, with prices where they are, we spend a lot less time looking at bad deals than we used to. When prices are up, a lot of things look good that aren't. And when prices are down, things that aren't good don't look good. And the things that look okay are probably really good. And that's, what we're looking at right now. It's just a different market, and it's kind of exciting. Momentum has definitely picked up here in the last 30 days, and I think the next 90 days are going to be real fun.
Let's talk about the next 90 days. What do you foresee, I guess? What should people take a look at? What's some of the tea leaves, if you will, that some people should keep an eye on?
Well, for here, and this isn't the same in every state, but here, all the kids are going to go back to school September 8th.
And you're talking Texas.
So I'm talking Texas and most of the country. I don't think it's happening everywhere, but most places I believe it is. And that is going to bring back a little bit more normalcy to people's lives. And I think that's exciting. I think there's going to be a lot of energy in the business world, in every aspect of the business world, because people are going to have to get back into the grind. And I think it's going to start happening in September and October. And I think by the end of the year, our economy in general is going to just be going like full bore, like it was in February, which excites me, because that gets everybody moving and things happening. And for us, that's exciting because people are able to make decisions and do things, and maybe they're getting paid rent that they weren't getting the last 6 months. And they're leasing properties that were abandoned, and things start happening like that free up capital, which allows people to buy into our deals. I mean, that's the way that the world goes round. Like, all the money doesn't come from one spigot, unfortunately for the Democrats. Yeah, it's the truth. It's not. The government doesn't pay for shit. All they did is help us survive. I mean, I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. And I think that's what most people want. So we're going to go thrive. And I think the whole economy is getting ready to just light up when kids go back to school and parents can actually breathe a little. I've talked to people who are high executives in big companies that have children that have literally had to they're putting in 20-hour days to get their work done and take care of their kids because of the interruptions. And if they go to the office, they can do that same work in 6 hours. It's just, everyone's tired. And they're tired from not being in their damn office, having to do 3 jobs because the government decided to shut everything down. It makes me crazy. Anyway, so screw the negative stuff, move it off. It's exciting because things are about to get way more normal in the next 90 days. That's what I'm talking about. We have a lot of exciting stuff going on here internally, but we don't need to get into that on here.
No, but if somebody wants to know, they can certainly contact you guys to find out more information about some of the deals that you guys have going at Swan Energy, some ways to invest into oil and gas, I guess, into the industry, be part of the industry. And I did want to ask you if you guys are still doing some of those 401k type well sharing programs that we were talking about several months ago.
That's always that's an opportunity that's always available if someone wants to be able to roll over their 401k. But in general, most people are doing it right off of their regular incomes, right? Because a lot of if you're exactly.
But there are people that do. I mean, it's just a private placement process of a 401k or an IRA. It's non-qualified funds. I mean, you can do that for most things. I wouldn't say we have a particular program for it, but it's something that a lot of people do when right now, and mainly because you can take money out of your 401k without paying anything. Which again, not my business. People do what they do. I personally prefer to do deals with cash because you get the tax benefit, which makes a lot of the risk. It lowers the risk. I mean, that's how it works in oil and gas. So
that's where I got the confusion that there's some tax advantages there, but it's not necessarily a program as much as it is an option.
Yeah, there's that opportunity. There's that option too. Yes, but if someone invests $250,000, for example, and they do it with cash, they're going to save somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in taxes, which is significant. So. And that varies from person to person, state to state, as far as what that is. And everyone should always talk to their CPA, their accountant about it. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty big tax savings in the year the investment's made, and that's the reason most people want to do it with cash versus qualified funds. But you can't, and that's not my decision, not my choice. It's just we put the options on the table, and people do what they do.
Well, Imran, you've been kind of quiet today, and Brandon, you were pretty upfront. You don't like to live in the past. You like to live in the present and strive for the future. So I feel embarrassed asking this question, but we did get an email in, and if anybody wants to email us, they certainly can. Jason at thecrudelife.com, or we should probably just set up mining money at thecrudelife.com. That way we can push it on social media. Now that I'm kind of thinking out loud here as we're have this weekly segment, Mining Money, here with Swan Energy. We've got Brandon Davis with us and Imran Khan, and we got this email in. Just somebody, they enjoyed our interview last week, and they were kind of wondering about your guys' first deal or one of your first deals. How, just if you wouldn't mind talking about it a little bit, just maybe not get too far in depth, but they just wondered about, how old were you and what was it, and that sort of thing. Just some basics, because there's a lot of people out there in the oil and gas industry that really do want to invest right now. They really do. But they're not used to the amount of uncertainty out there. They're used to uncertainty in the oil and gas industry, but they're not used to the uncertainty of, the schools and the universities and some of the other things happening and that sort of thing. So there's just a few things out there. So I don't know if you guys have a few minutes to maybe talk a little bit about either an early investment or something like that, just to kind of, share a little bit of those stories for some people out there so they can relate or kind of get motivated to get out there and kick some ass in them. Like I tell people, they just printed $7 trillion. Go get it, man. Go get it.
My first deal that I remember was when I was 10 years old, and I was visiting my cousin in Farmington, New Mexico, and one day my aunt took us to a hobby shop, and we saw one of those rockets that you shoot up in the sky that we wanted. I can't remember how much it cost, a couple $100, maybe. And so we went back to my uncle's car dealership after this and talked about it for a minute and decided that what we were going to do was go wash windows on cars at the restaurant next door and make enough money to buy the rocket, which we did, except we got the rocket the day I got on the airplane to go home. So I never got to play with it, but we did accomplish the mission, which it was it felt really good. It was the first time that there was collaboration, had to put together money to go do something and a joint effort. It was quite exciting.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was my first business.
You're like the project manager that flew into town and didn't get to see the actual event in its fruition, but you're a part of everything else.
Behind it. But my cousin told me the rocket was really cool. So,
how about you, Imran? You've had your fingers in a few pies. So, which is there an early story that you care to share?
I think last time I mentioned that the first business that I did, I got audited. It was basically I was very much into cars, a lot of import cars. back in the day, I was probably about 16, and I started this company called Import Power, and that was like my this was before all these import shops and all these different things popped up in the 90s, and I would buy different parts, and I set up this whole website because that was part of what was going on back then, and started selling parts online while I was still in high school. And the first year that I did it, I wrote off a little bit too much, more than I should have, and I got audited, and it was just a funny story, but I learned from it quite a bit. So it was fun times.
That's funny.
When I stepped out, when I started my oil company, the first project I did was in Mississippi, and we started the work about a week before Katrina hit.
Oh shit!
And it took 6 months to finish what should have taken 2 weeks because of the hurricane, and it ended up being a failure. And it was painful because of how long it drug out because of the hurricane. So it made it like 5 times worse than it would have been if it had just gotten done the next week. And that was my first endeavor on my own in the oil business, and it didn't turn out, and cost 3 times more than it should because of the time it took. But that's you learn the hard way, right? You learn by failing. It's not a matter of how often someone wins; it's how often someone gets their ass kicked and then gets back up and goes again. And that's my first 3 deals were like that. It was just one thing after the other that went wrong. And then we finally got our feet under us and went, and it's been pretty good since. But it's going to only get better in the future because I actually do learn from my mistakes, and I think that most people do that.
Experience pays for sure.
It does. It's expensive though.
Very expensive.
It is, and and it is relative. It's relative. And you guys were talking about some of your early on days, and you got me thinking of back when I was 10 years old and I was a paper boy. And I needed more money than what the paper route did. And back then we had to go door to door to collect, and everybody's wife had the checkbook. So here I am, a 10-year-old kid carrying these people month to month on their papers, because back then nobody paid the newspaper. You had to go collect it. It was a different deal. The newspaper actually sent you a bill. So as a 10-year-old, you're a 1099 employee of the newspaper back then. And anyway, so I, like a young entrepreneur, I decided to, because I had access to a photocopy machine. So I wrote up a nice flyer that, I even drew traced a couple pictures of, I think, Charlie Brown mowing the lawn. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm like, mow your lawn, and I started with, this is no kidding, the first one I did was 8.5 by 11, okay? And then I was so stupid, I printed, 100 of them, and I put them in every paper, and then I dropped them in the places. Well, then eventually I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just do half pages? Save my costs, all this other stuff, and time, and then I went to half page. Well, then I got smart enough, and this was over the course of several months, keep in mind, because you're just so busy and you're caught up in your own stuff, and sometimes you need that team like you have, and sometimes you need a little bit more resource and that sort of thing. What do they call it? See the forest from the trees, I think is the saying. But eventually what I did is I realized I'm just going to carry with a half a dozen of these flyers, and the lawns that need to be mowed, I'm going to put it in their newspaper on that day. So I went from 200 flyers down to 6. And I just remember thinking, going, God, I got to remember that through business. And I don't think I ever learned that lesson. I just keep relearning that lesson. But anyway, so.
Well, you saying that just reminded me, though, whenever I was in junior high and high school, I was on the poor end of the people that I played sports with. And I had a really cool basketball coach. His name was Ray West. He passed away last year. But he was super cool, and he would pay for me to go to these things, these events. But I had to work it off by rolling the newspapers on Saturday night for Sunday morning, the Sunday news.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I spent a lot of nights rolling newspapers until 3 or 4 in the morning to work off all the things that he paid for me, which was really, really cool of him to do. And so I got my fill from newspapers from that. I never had to deliver one because by the time I was finished rolling them, I was so tired there wasn't a chance I was doing anything but making it home.
And I'll tell you what, man, just to let you know my beef on that story, halfway through my professional career as a newspaper carrier, we had to start carrying them and stuffing them on the fly. So they stopped. They stopped coming. The Sunday papers stopped coming inserted. We would get the paper.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what we were rolling Sunday papers, and those things are thick.
Oh yeah.
Sections and the
well, you guys were one of the first ones they laid off, and then so what they did is they passed that on to the newspaper boys. So what we would do is we'd get a stack of Sunday papers and then a stack of ads, and we had to insert them that morning. So, they've just kept.
That's what we did, and enrolled them.
Right, I know. That was a great job for a long time, much like, headline writers and that sort of thing. It's just, anyway, it's the evolution of the newsprint.
You reminded me of a story on the lawn mowing part. So the first lawn that I mowed was my neighbor's, I remember, and halfway through mowing the lawnmower broke down.
Oh, no.
And all I wanted was $5 to be able to go buy some baseball cards,
you spend on fixing the lawnmower?
I had to go get some guy across the street, and he helped me fix it. But it was like such a long process, and I was like in the middle of it. I was just like, oh no, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna tell this lady who already paid me that I only mowed half of her lawn? You know?
And you got the money up front. Oh. Oh man, equipment breaks down, money up front. I tell you what, there's a lot of truckers right now just sweating bullets. It's just too much PTSD. Anyway, so well, that's good. By the way, if anybody wants to, we'll go ahead and do that. Mining money at thecrudelife.com. If anybody has any questions for Swan Energy, Brandon Davis, Imran Khan. Occasionally, Jeremy Pate joins us as well. So if you got a question about how to make some money, where the pockets of positivity are out there in the marketplace, or even if you want to swap some old war stories, because my goodness, it sounds like we've all been entrepreneurs since we were single digits. I mean, it's
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
well, I mean, like you guys have said before in our past interviews, you're just born with it. And it's just, that's the way you approach life as an entrepreneur. So if nothing else, go ahead.
You putting that picture of that race car with Swan Energy on the side of it gave me a little bit of anxiety, by the way, when I kept seeing the post on LinkedIn. I'm like, what is he doing? Oh my gosh. It's exciting. It was fun, but it was so expensive.
Oh, was that an expensive hobby? Did that turn into
It was a business. It was not a hobby. But yes, it was extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. I would never suggest anyone do it, ever. I'm just saying.
No owning race teams.
No race cars, unless you're 100% hobby. And that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, it is different.
Well, somebody like Joe Gibbs made it look so easy. I mean, he left football for it. So, I mean, hey,
he had big money behind him. And it's the same big money that was behind the Redskins. And I didn't. So.
Well, isn't that kind of the bottom line, though, in NASCAR? Is seriously, you need some big money in NASCAR. You do.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's a way better now, though, because when I was doing it, we leased engines for each race, and it was like six figures for each race for an engine. And now they're using engines for like 4 races. And then being able to rebuild. So no. And now after COVID, the new procedure, like they show up and race, there's no practice. We used to have 4 days that we'd have to travel, hotels for 40 or 50 people, airline tickets for 40 or 50 people, which the NASCAR has private charters, but it was still expensive. So now they go to the track and race on a day, and that's it for the most part, which I guess if that would have happened, you could probably almost pay for it now with the purse money, which before was just a fraction of the budget. So it's way better than it was, and I'm actually really pleased to see it move in the direction it did, because where it was, there was no way anyone could come in and ever succeed. So it's kind of neat to see.
You bring up a good point, though. Sometimes the sexy, fun, the ones that you can brag about at the dinner parties, investments aren't always the best. You pay an arm and a leg for some good stories at the time, because I remember when logistics was making all kinds of money, these guys that were investing in logistics people were falling asleep halfway through the sentence, but they were making money hand over fist because it was the thing to do. And I kind of look at the oil and gas industry like that right now, where it is so primed right now with the way natural gas prices are, the way oil prices are. Last week you mentioned the international investments are starting to leave the shale play USA, which is a great sign. So let's just kind of conclude a little bit about some opportunities or some positivity out there in the oil and gas investment world. So talk to me about how people can contact you, and just kind of a conclusion about, right now investing in oil and gas.
Well, if anyone wants to reach out to us, they can go to Swan Energy Inc. It's swanenergyinc.com, and contact us. It has our contact information in there. And you can also fill out information if you'd like to see what we're working on. You can go there. As far as hot things in the market, there's a lot. We've looked at some opportunities. We passed on some we should have taken. We've taken a few, and there's going to be more coming. And I think just everyone needs to keep their eyes open and head on a swivel and see what's out there, because there are a lot of great opportunities right now.
Imran, anything or?
No, I think he's right about that. The biggest thing is just kind of following. If you just look at where oil's gone and the fact that it's touched the bottom and moving back up in the right direction, the stabilization is the main thing, right? And I think the fact that in the last 6 months it's been very unstable, the volatility has been so high, it is why the prices are where they're at, and that's really what's causing all the opportunities right now. And I think in the next, probably by the end of the year, we'll have even more that are going to get better and better. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to right now.